Good afternoon. Welcome to yet another special edition of Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, the finest television. We are live on GSTV channel 279, Go TV 27, Top Star 102, and live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. Do inform your family members and your friends that we are live right here on KBN TV. Today we are looking at an interesting topic, just from where we ended last week. It's a continuation of our previous topic. And in the studio, I'm not alone as usual. I am with Mr. Owen Kabanda, is Leadership and Management Advisor. Mr. Kabanda, welcome to Labor Matters.
Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and happy KK Day.
I almost forgot.
It's today.
Thank you. And
we enjoy the holiday tomorrow, Monday, but it's today.
It's today, but I know a lot of people are just looking forward to Monday because it's a holiday.
Yeah. Now, let's enjoy it today.
How are you, by the way?
I'm very fine and glad to be here.
Amazing. So today we are looking at yet another special topic. It's just a continuation, Mr. Kabanda, from where we ended last week. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we couldn't continue our conversation, but I am glad to have you back just to continue from where we ended.
I'm glad to be here also.
Amazing. To our viewers, we are looking at strategic HR for executives part 2, because that's the conversation we started last week. So if you have questions, comments, or other contributions about our topic of discussion for today, please do go on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV, and drop us those comments, or rather use the number which is right on your TV screen and send us those text messages. Mr. Kabanda will respond to all the questions and concerns that you have today. Mr. Kabanda, to start up the conversation, we hear what you say most of the time when it comes to issues to do with employers and employees. Now, when we talk over strategic plans, we know that they can be 3, 5, or even 10, as we talked about some time back.
Yeah.
Can you say that HR also plan for that long, or maybe they should just work around with their annual work plans, or should we talk of a budget plan, or they should also stick to such a longer period of work plan?
Yes, so like we were saying in the last episode, it's really important that at the strategic level, because we are talking of doing HR now at a very high level. This is beyond the HR at a lower level, where basically, as we were saying, sometimes you're running with leave forms and leave days and salary advances. At the higher level, at the strategic level, you're basically now saying, where are we going as an institution? So yes, it's important that HR understands the strategic plan, if it is there in place. In as much as it can be 3, 5, 10 years, the HR has to understand that strategic plan. Again, like we said last time, if your company, as an HR, if your company doesn't have a strategic plan in place, there is always a direction that it wants to take. And that's why, as HR, you have to fully understand where the institution is going. It means you have to sit down with your board and your CEO and really understand, where are we going as an institution. Even if the strategic plan, the 5-year strategic plan, or 3 years or 10-year strategic plan is not there actually in writing. But what we do encourage actually companies is to make sure that they start writing their strategic plans, because then it becomes easy for measurement of progress. Are you actually making progress? Because when you don't write certain things, it becomes difficult for you to really say we are making progress, because you have nothing to compare to. But when you write these things down, it then becomes easy. It also makes it easy for management of human resource on the other hand. Coming to your question around, should HR also, have that long-term kind of planning, or should they really just be working with the annual work plans and budgets? It's important to really align the HR strategies to the corporate strategies, because if there's a disjoint, then what starts to happen at that high level is that HR will be running with very short things. In the meantime, they have not invested in making sure that they have the right people with the right skills and knowledge and qualifications and the capacity to take the institution forward. So at a strategic level, there is a lot of work actually that goes on, meaning that HR has to plan for the whole long period. It then means that as HR, you now need to sit down at that point and work out, for instance, the organization structure, like we said. This organization structure should speak to the strategy, meaning that you only provide for people and positions that are going to add value for you to achieve the company's goals. That is very critical. The conditions of service that you start putting in place, again, should cover that long period. So it means you are now looking at what conditions should we have in this company, first of all, in line with the law, and then over and above what the law provides, what do we want to have in this company? Because you are now planning for a whole long period. If you're looking at capacity building within your staff, what are you going to do, and what skills are you actually, focusing on in terms of building in your staff, so that your employees can then be able to deliver on that strategic plan. So from the HR point of view, at a strategic level, and we're talking of high level, management, or director level, or chief level, you really need to understand what you're doing at that level, so that you then can help the company to be able to achieve its mandate.
Mr. And I've talked about the importance of planning. Now, if we can also talk about the issue of recruitments. And recruitment is also really just the same. What strategies does a strategic HR get to employ when in search for talent acquisitions?
Yes, so even before you go out at that strategic level to actually start looking for the people and doing your recruitment, remember we said you need to plan for the whole long period. It means in that planning, there was also a full recruitment plan. Now, these are not recruitments for, next week we need someone, I think after 1 month. No, this is actually planning for a whole long period. So in the recruitment plan, so one of the things that we work on, for instance, when we get a 5-year strategic plan, and we work out let's say 5-year organization structure, or a 10-year organization structure, we now then sit down to say, when should the people come in? So there are two different companies. The company that is maybe just starting from the scratch, you then have to have that plan in terms of who comes when. For the next 3 months, or next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You create that recruitment plan. If it is a company that is already operating, based on the organization structure, you then create still a recruitment plan. That recruitment plan is a long-term plan. So it will have where we are currently sitting, how many people do we have, what are the positions, which department has what number. So there's a lot of analysis that actually goes into this exercise. So that when you now create that recruitment plan, you are saying at CEO's level, this is the number that we need. This is at director level, this is the number. At manager level, or senior officer level, all the way up to the lowest grade. You are then calculating now. When you do that recruitment plan, Patricia, the next thing that starts to happen is you have to work out now the costing. Because remember, this is at a strategic level. And this is why we say, we even encourage our colleagues that these are some of the things to start venturing in, because they help you at that level. In terms of your recruitment plan, you now have to cost the structure and your recruitment plan, where you're now saying, if we have 10 employees now, it's costing us maybe 100,000 as an example. What would it cost us now when we grow from 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 to 50 employees, or maybe you are going to grow to 150 employees, let's say in a period of 5-10 years, depending on the programs and how your company is rolling out its programs. So that now requires you to work out now the labor costing. This part, again, you can do it yourself as HR, or you can work with the colleagues from finance to make sure that the total cost to the company is strategic level. You cannot run away from these things, because you really need to make sure that the company is well informed about when these people come. So this is from the big corporate organizations that we work for and we have worked in. Those are the kind of things that start to happen, because now you are now saying, for this one individual, when you load the cost of the gross, the salary itself, what goes on the payroll every month, you then cost the NAPSA. How much NAPSA are we paying as a company? It's not from the employee now. You are calculating the cost of the salary, NAPSA itself, the NEMA. There is a percentage that is provided. Then the cost of workers' compensation. Then there is skills levy. You also calculate the cost of anything that you give, let's say the medicals, you calculate the cost of even just gratuity, the leave days, and so on. So when you add up all these things, then you have the total cost to the company.
Sure.
So with that, then it means you can then start now saying, when we have done our recruitment plan, remember we said it is at a strategic level. It's not just running around with an advert at a lower level. It's at the high level there, at the strategic level. You're now saying, for the 10 employees that we have, like I mentioned, it's costing us 100,000. When we increase to 15 employees at such levels, we are now going to be spending maybe 170,000 or depending on the new salaries that you also want to put in place. So at a strategic level, the recruitments that start to be done then are very strategic. You have calculated the cost. You then also work out when these people have to come in. The time should be very specific. There's nothing like recruit people earlier or later, because that affects production, but also it affects your cost as a company. So at this high level, and this is one thing that we encourage companies to make sure that everything is thought through. You prepare everything, because now you're saying, if in quarter one of our operations we are going to spend this, when we increase the number in quarter two, it will now cost us this. Quarter three, quarter four, if it is within the year. And that's what brings in now that aspect which you're talking about around the budget. So it's important that now you have planned everything out. Then you can now go out to do the recruitments. Now, you asked a question around, is there even a difference? Recruitments are just recruitments. Yes, at the strategic level, remember when you are actually going out, it has to be in line with your own policies. So you need to guide the institution in terms of when do we recruit, and what methods are we also going to use in terms of the recruitment. So there is a lot of thought that goes through and a lot of analysis, because that impacts the organization.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. To our viewers who are watching Labour Matters right here on KBN TV, let's take a short break. We'll be back soon. Welcome back. You're still watching Labour Matters right here on KBN TV, live on GSTV 279, GoTV 27, Topstar 102, and live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. If you have any questions, comments, or contributions about our topic of discussion, feel free to use the number which is right on your TV screen and get to send us those contributions, or rather go on our Facebook page, KBN TV, and drop us those comments. Remember, in the studio, I am with Mr. Owen Kabanda, who is Management and Leadership Advisor, and he will respond to all the questions you have today. Now, Mr. Kabanda, I'm now thinking, when it comes to staff retention, what strategies does strategic HR get to employ, or is the salary just enough?
No. Salaries are never enough for anybody.
Okay.
Definitely, it's important to put in place some staff retention strategies. Remember, when you bring in the people in the company, like we were saying, you have gone through the first part. Actually, if you want to be really effective, when it comes to staff retention. You have to actually start right from the recruitment itself. At a strategic level, you are actually saying what kind of people do we bring on board? There has to be some kind of arrangement where the employee who's coming in can actually fit in the company. You make sure that you're hiring the people who are right for your institution. And at the end of the day, when you hire them, there's need to actually make sure that they understand your company. That's why that induction becomes important. So sometimes we run to just looking at salaries, that is what will really keep the employees. It is also important to really understand when you are bringing the people, are these people actually the right people for your institution? And also you as an institution, are you the right institution for that person? Because the people also should have choices. So you then need to make sure that as an institution, you start putting in place policies and procedures that actually help you to make sure that you have an environment in which when you bring the people, they can actually come and work well, they can come and thrive. Those things become very important. So in terms of staff retention, we talk about, first of all, recruitment itself. Hire the right people who fit in your culture, the right people who can work with you, and also do the inductions so that they actually understand what is expected of them and what the company is going to do for them. So at that strategic level also, you need to now be able to, even before the people come in, you have to have put in place policies and procedures that actually are focused on making sure that the company is running properly. The biggest challenge that is there is that when you don't have these policies and procedures in place, then people do things whichever way they want. You need to be clear about your policies around recruitment. Who do we recruit? Your policies around salaries. How do you award salaries? Things should be very clear. You should have policies around benefits. What benefits can employees actually have? You should have policies around performance management. Those policies, some of them are actually mandatory when you look at the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. You should have those things in place. How are you going to manage the performance of the staff? So apart from the performance, you should also have even policies around discipline and also how you are going to handle employee grievances. Now, the importance of these things are that they kind of standardize your approach to employee management. So at a strategic level, at that high level, you need to make sure that these things are in place. Now, the policies need to be up to date. Again, if you cannot make those policies on your own, you can bring on board a consultant who can come and help with setting up all those things. But I must make mention, Patricia, that having policies alone doesn't mean anything. Because a policy could be there and the document is actually just gathering dust. So it goes now in terms of how you actually put things in practice. So what are your practices within your institution? And this is where now at a high level, strategic level in HR, you now need to make sure that the practices within your institution are actually on point. What that means is that you need to make sure that top management, they understand your policies, middle management understand your policies, the employees themselves understand these policies. And you, if you are HR, you also understand these policies. Now, that is level 1, understanding of the policies. At level 2, we are now saying, how do you put them in practice? Because you can have very nice written policies, but you find that managers are doing something else. And that's why at a strategic level, you need to make sure that you are helping the managers to understand and apply these policies properly. You yourself as HR, also you need to be very sure that you understand the interpretation of those policies and procedures and you're actually practicing them. The challenge that is there is that if you are at a strategic level in HR, you find today you interpret your policy like this, tomorrow it's interpreted in another way. Today for John, you run around to make sure that the policy is implemented. Tomorrow it's Mary, nobody cares. That practice cannot really help an institution. So it's important that when you have these policies in place, the policy is actually being implemented in a fair manner and consistently. And where you are not going to implement a particular policy, you need to make it very clear both to top management, as well as to employees, what exactly is going on. Because you want to make sure that the employees that are working with you, they are actually happy being with you, and they are going to be staying and working with you. Remember, part of the objectives for HR is not only recruitment. So there is data that is collected in terms of how you do your recruitment. There is also data that is measured at the time of looking at the employees, how many people come in and how many people actually go. So in terms of staff retention, it's a very critical component at a strategic level, because if more people that you are hiring are actually leaving, then it becomes a challenge for your institution. That's why you find that there are things that, like staff turnover rates, which you measure, for instance, every month or every quarter or every year. You are saying, how many people did we have at the beginning of the period? How many people have we remained with at the end of the period? You divide that by the numbers that came in and that went, and you find your staff turnover rates. When you do that, you are now actually looking at the institution, is it healthy or not? And then even the people that are staying, you need to be sure what exactly is happening, what is keeping them. And for those that are going, why are they going? So there is a lot of analysis at a higher level that has to happen. When people are leaving your institution, it's not just, okay, it's okay, we'll find another one.
Yeah.
No, you need to find out, especially because the reasons for staff separation, we start looking at them in terms of two categories. There are reasons that are because of the employer, and there are reasons that are associated to the employee. So if you find that in your analysis, you find more people are leaving because the employer is doing something that the employer shouldn't be doing, maybe the environment is hostile, maybe people, the salaries are too low for the people, and most of them are finding, you need to start now looking at which ways do we actually remedy this problem. So staff retention is a very important function at a strategic level, because if you are just letting people come in and go, your company then becomes what is called a training ground. So they will come, they will learn everything you do, they are busy making applications, they go somewhere, they start shining. Because your company has now been made to be really just a training ground, and you don't want to do that. On top of that, it becomes a loss to the company, even financially, because you have invested so much in that person, and that person comes and goes. It's also, it also affects even the timing in terms of your productivity as an institution. You find that when you recruited this person, they were trying to understand your systems, your policies, how you do things. At that time, maybe they are not so productive. So just at the time that they have now known how to work, they are becoming very productive. The next thing, they're out. Then you have to hire another one. So that just really starts to take the company back. So this is why strategic management becomes very important, because we are now looking at the numbers, analyzing what are the problems that are leading to our people going, and then how do we fix those things. If it means you now starting to train the managers, do that. Because they are the ones actually, the line managers, they are the ones that actually do a lot of things that sometimes can lead to employees leaving. Remember, there is always this famous saying that employees don't leave institutions, they leave managers. But at the end of the day, also employees leave institutions. Because if the managers are doing certain things that employees are not happy with, then it means from the strategic HR point of view, those managers have not been given the capacity to understand better how to manage those employees. So it's very, very important that you invest in the managers and the line managers and supervisors to make sure that they really know how to treat the employees very well. In that way, you can then play around with your staff satisfaction and staff retention. On top of that, what you can also do as an institution and at a strategic level, because it's not just seeing people smiling. There are studies now that are done, the surveys. So you can carry out an engagement survey. Now that one we have talked about in the past, you can do it yourself, or you can get another company to come into your company. Then they carry out the survey. So there are a number of questions that will be prepared. Usually nowadays these things are done online. In the past, people go around with, the hard copies and meeting employees. This time, with a lot of technology, and depending on your institution. If the institution doesn't use a lot of technology, then you can still use the hard copy kind of survey system. They are the consultant. Like we've gone into different companies. You sit down with the employees and find out what is the challenge, or you send them a questionnaire about the conditions of service, the salaries, how they are being treated by management, and all those kind of things. And then the employees are free to then respond. Then you are now able to measure what kind of environment this company actually has. So ensuring the staff retention, the people that you bring in, is a very critical component of strategic management, because then if you don't have systems and policies in place, as well as good practices that allow employees to stay, it then means, like I said, you become a very nice training ground.
I know you've mentioned it, and last time we did mention on the implications when an organization does not have an HR, but when it comes to policies that have to do with salary increment and disciplinary issues, do we have implications in that area? Because we still have organizations without policies that have to do with the salary increments. You don't know when you do something, you don't even know where to go. Do we have implications in such an area?
Definitely. Like we've said, because we're actually talking about strategic HR, every institution, no matter whether big or small, you need to now see. Remember, like we were talking about it last time, if you have the capital, the money, the next thing you have the equipment, the next thing you should be thinking of is the people. There are so many things that we can talk about, but let's focus on these three. Money itself doesn't do the job. The equipment itself will not do the job on its own. You need the people, and that's why, because as a business you're going to employ people, there's need now to actually look at how best to manage these people that you have in an institution. So whether the company is small or big, it's important that there is actually focus on how to manage the staff that you're going to have. Now what that means therefore is that if you're going to have people working for you, the next thing to look at is who is actually coordinating their work, especially when it comes to human resource management aspect. Remember, human resource management, like we said before, is now a regulated field. What that means that then the business or a company or an institution, they needs to look for a person who is qualified to assist the institution on HR matters. Now, this can be a person who comes in and they're working every day within the institution, it can also be a team of HR people, depending on how big your institution is. Some companies then do what is called outsourcing, where you go to a consulting firm and then they give you somebody who will be working with them, but that person is not sitting on your payroll. So you give, instead of that person receiving a salary, you are paying a fee to that other company, the consulting company. But what that does is, either way, when you have an HR person within in-house or someone from the consulting firm, what this does to the employees is that then they have a voice, someone they know that they can go and complain to in an event that there is any issue. And also that very person, the HR person, needs to be also positioned in such a, they should be in a place where they can actually advise management and they can advise the employees. Because when it doesn't help for the HR to be explaining every time to employees, the HR also needs to explain things to management. There has to be some form of understanding now. If the issues are around salaries, what is the issue with these salaries? The HR has to explain to the management what the complaints of the employees are. Also, he or she should be able to explain to the employees the position of the company. In that way, then you have less and less of these fights with employees and management. At the same time, you find a way that with the policies in place, and remember, if you have an HR, or even if you don't even have an HR, if you go to the employment code, the law requires under section 95 that you have these policies in place. Even before we even talk about having to hire an HR person, this is why we're talking about strategic HR. Every institution should have in place policies and procedures as stipulated in the law. Policies around recruitment, policies around those salaries and benefits and conditions of service, policies around performance, how you are going to manage people's performance and conduct and all those kind of things. The policies need to be in place. Again, if an institution or a business cannot do those things on their own, they can go on the market and get a consultant to help them. At least have the policies in place to a point where if you have the policies and they are being implemented by every manager, the environment becomes easy to manage. But what is key is beyond the policies, you still need to hire an HR person, and that HR person should be according again to the law. For the Zambia Institute of Human Resource, the law again is very clear that that person should be a member of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource, and they should have a practicing license, meaning that it should not be just anybody that you find on the street and say, no, since you know how to photocopy, you can come and be our HR here. No, that's not what we're talking about. So at a strategic level, really, there is need to plan for all these things so that the institution is really being run properly.
Now, Mr. Kabanda, you being an employment expert and an international speaker must make mention in the country. What is your advice on how strategic HR can promote employee engagement and culture? Yeah,
so when we talk of culture, really, every country or every place on this earth has got its own culture. You go to America, you find their own culture. You go to Europe, you come to Africa, there is culture that is considered African. But even within Africa, different countries practice different things. You come to Zambia, Zambia is considered to have its own culture. So the key thing is, culture is always going to be, as long as one or two people are together, there's certain things they're going to be practicing. There's a certain way they will live. There's a certain way they will talk to each other. What is then is key is that within an institution, you then look at the corporate culture. That means here where we are in our company, AB and Sons, what is our culture here? If you are a big institution, government institution, private institution, an NGO, you should decide what kind of culture do we want to have in this company. What that means, simple things that you can even see in terms of the cultures in the institution. You go to some private companies, you find you are calling each other by the first name. Oh, Mr. This, people don't even say Mr. or Mrs. They'll just say John, Mary. Even when the person is so old, you find people are calling each other by first names. That's the culture that they have in that company. You go to other companies, oh no, it's very traditional. You call people by their last name. So if you come in and you say, oh, John, no, it's an offense. That person should be called Mr. Banda, Mr. Piri, or Mr. Kabanda, or whatever it is. Because that institution has taken that their culture as a sign of respect. You call people by their last name. So every company really has its own culture and its own way of doing things. Now, at a strategic level, what is it that is really important? Again, from the strategic HR point of view, you then sit down and ask yourselves, first of all, let's break things down. What kind of culture do we want to have here? Because remember, if you don't decide what kind of culture you want to have, then it remains for each individual employee to determine what they want to do. And most of the times, the people who have authority in that company, what if this manager likes people to come 3 hours before the actual reporting time? That becomes the culture for that department. Okay? There are also other managers who, even when you have knocked off, they don't want you to move, because they want to see that even if you know your knock-off time is 17, they go home at 20 hours. Nobody can move, because if you left at 18 hours or 19 hours, then you are still not to be committed. But is that the culture you want? Again, this is why we're saying the culture of a company, at a strategic HR level, you need to think everything through and ask yourselves, what kind of culture do we want in this company? Because the culture that you set has other implications. If it is even simple things like reporting time, what time do people report? And what are we recognizing as actual reporting time? Because it has an effect on how much people put in. You expect people to report on time and to be able to knock off on time. But again, what are the other managers doing? So you need to set the tone. And this is where now, at strategic level, the HR needs to sit down with the CEO of the institution, and then you are also saying, what is it what we are going to be doing here? Because when you don't set the right tone, and if the CEO of the institution doesn't set the right tone, then you have bigger problems. Because now it becomes chipante-pante. This one does what they want, this one does what, and that also creates confusion among employees, especially from different departments or sections of the company. When the culture has not been set right, it creates a lot of problems. So from the strategic point of view, the key thing to set is the right culture, where you are now saying, as a company, we want to operate like this. If we are focusing on productivity, this is what productivity actually means in our company. If we are saying we want to be professional, this is what it means for us to work as professionals. Meaning that there are things that you are going to reward, and there are things you are not going to tolerate. If you have said you want to be a company that is focused on integrity, and somebody is stealing, and then you are seen to entertain that, then you are conflicting with yourselves. So as a company, you will set the right tone, then you set what you reward in terms of, let's say if it's performance or good conduct or behavior. You also set the right tone around things that you cannot accept as an institution, meaning that if you cross this line, the company will take X, Y, Z kind of actions, because you're at that point, setting the right tone for the institution. It is very important when you create the right culture for staff retention, because what starts to happen is that if you have people who want to operate in an environment which is professional, where they are not looking over their shoulders, you don't know who is gossiping, who's telling this one. If you have set the right tone, the right culture in the company, then people can work freely, knowing that as long as I'm come here, I'm professional, I'm going to do my job, I'll get paid. At the end of the day, if I'll leave after 3, 5, 10 years, I'll leave in a professional manner, not whereby they are working and they have to really be watching their backs every time. So setting the right culture in a company has a lot of benefits for the company, because employees can then work very well. It goes also even just the way people dress, the way people talk to each other, and you can literally see these things even in meetings. If you go into a company which is full of fear, you'll see people don't even contribute, because even when someone has a very good idea, they are scared that by just contributing, someone will think that they are challenging somebody. So in the process, people just keep quiet, because people have to protect their jobs, and that doesn't really help the institution as a whole. So culture is very critical. When you set the right culture, where people know that when they report for work, they are working, they are happy, then they start to apply themselves fully. The issues of retention that we're talking about don't even become an issue, because somebody would want to stay in that company which has the right culture, rather than being in a company which is toxic, where everybody is after everybody's throat. Even when you just leave a cup, you don't know who's going to poison you. You feel just some headache. You are hallucinating now about somebody maybe is praying dangerous prayers for me. No, you should. So HR and top management really has a big role to make sure that they are setting the right culture in the company. And where they have a challenge, there are, again, consultants who come into companies and help. Usually the program runs for like 6 months to maybe 1 year or so, where you help the company to set the right culture, and then you support them maybe for 6 months. And sometimes after 6 months, if there's any need for extension, then you do so. But setting the right culture in the company is extremely important.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. You've talked about performance management, and if you can just briefly explain, how does strategic HR approach performance management?
Yeah, again, like we have said in the past, it's really being very clear about what we are doing in the company. Remember, you had a plan. You have your 10, 5 or 3-year plan. You are now saying, remember, those plans are also attached to the company's performance. So you're saying, for instance, if you're in the mines, we are going to produce X amount of metric tons of copper. If you're in construction, you are saying for the next 3 years, we are going to finish this road. So there are key milestones. If you are in telecoms, you have your own milestones in terms of the number of customers you want to have, if you are, and how much money you are going to make. So in those strategic plans, there are specific milestones that have to be achieved at every stage. And so from the HR side, at the strategic level, you should be then asking yourself, how do we make sure that the employees are performing in line with our requirements so that we can achieve those targets? So from there, what you are now looking at is, can we have a proper performance management system in place? That performance management system, what you are now saying is, what are the components of this performance management system? How are we measuring that the corporation itself, the company, is actually performing? How are we measuring that the individuals in the company are actually performing? So the two, the corporate performance and the employee performance, need to start being, going together. So you are then now coming up with a system that you can actually use, a system that everybody understands. It should not be, these appraisals that are done where the supervisor goes to hide somewhere, and then they do an appraisal, they bring it, no, these are the results. It should never be like that. So at a strategic level, you're actually saying, how do we make sure that the employees understand our system? But that performance management system should be tied also to the reward system, meaning if I perform at this level, what will I get? Because every employee when they're working, they want to also see, what do I get? What's the benefit? What do I benefit if I perform at this level? Yes, I can keep the contract, but is there something else that I can benefit by performing at a higher level? Or if I don't perform, what also could happen to me? Would I lose the job, or in this company it's okay whether you are sleeping, whether you work or not? Same. The difference is the same. So again, if you have a culture and a performance system that is not proper, people are also able to reduce their performance if they see that there is no benefit, because then they start to say, okay, so if I worked so hard, I was killing myself, and Mary there, who wasn't doing anything, is actually getting almost the same as me, or maybe even better. What's the point? So human beings are very complex. We have talked about these things. So it's important that you have a proper performance management system and a reward system. All these should be tied, and that's why at that level, at a strategic level, you're asking yourself, can we do this internally? Or again, we bring in a consultant to help us to set up everything and train the managers and train employees so that everybody is working towards a common goal for productivity.
Well explained. Mr. Kabanda, you being a trainer and international speaker, what would you say are the initiatives strategic HR undertaken for training and development?
Again, we've been talking about training. It's important that training is also not just seen like, fulfilling a fixture where, okay, this year we did training. It's not necessary. What is really key is that at a strategic level, you need to now, again, the question is, where are we going with this institution? If we want to be very productive, or we want to be number one, or we want to be the leader in something, you should be asking ourselves, we should be saying, what exactly do we have in terms of the systems? What systems do we have in place? Then we ask ourselves, what employees do we actually have? Because apart from the systems, we should now evaluate the employees that we have. We should also at another level evaluate even the managers that we have, or the leadership of the institution. What then that means is that you should look out the key skills and knowledge and the capacity that you should impart in management for you to go for the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. You are now asking yourself, these people in management, what kind of skills do they need for them to lead us properly? Because it's not using wisdom or mano ya chifyarirwa. It's the way I was born, I can figure out things. No. You can be very good as a technocrat or whatever it is, but there is need to now invest in key skills, supervision, planning skills, or decision making, management skills, leadership skills. You need to equip that group of people with the right skills that help them to manage the employees very well, so that the employees are working towards those goals that you have set for yourself in the short and medium to long term. The employees themselves, so you should also then sit down. Again, like I said, it's not just ticking a box where you say, okay, no, at least we did some training. Trainings that are done just like we just woke up, that also doesn't help. You need to now say, in this year, or for the next 3 years, what kind of skills do our staff actually need? These are trainings that are actually initiated and they are motivated by the employer. Because you're now saying, okay, if we are in this kind of business, maybe our people need more of analytical skills, or maybe our people need to understand money, or people need to maybe customer service, or our people need to now know a lot more about financial management, or whatever it is, or artificial intelligence. So you are looking, it's not a training that looks fancy. It's about the training that you think will add value to the company. So at a strategic level, you're actually working out specific trainings that the institution has to undertake, whether internally, where the employees are trained internally, or they are sent somewhere, or you can bring a consultant, or they are done online, or whichever way. You have to now figure this one out, and then you work out now the training plan and training budget, two things. Because at this level now, it's not just, so do we have some money? No, you're actually making a plan. It's a strategic decision being made that we are going to invest this amount of money in training our staff, and we expect these results. And there are specific assessments that are actually done to make sure that the employees are actually acquiring those skills or knowledge or the capacity that you are planning, and not just doing things without seeing what value it's bringing. So at that level, that is what is involved.
Now, as a management and leadership advisor, Mr. Kabanda, what role do you think strategic HR gets to play in change management?
Yeah, so when you look at every institution, there are various theories around businesses. For instance, the cyclic one, where you say that a company, just like a human being, could be born and it grows and at some point die. So your institution, at a strategic level, you need to actually see where have we come from and where are we now. So at that level now, you are now working out a clear change management program, where you are saying these are the things that we really don't think will help us going forward. Remember, we're talking about a short, medium, long-term strategic plan. So the things that don't help you will have to be changed. Are there certain cultures that are being practiced, or certain practices in the company that you think don't add value? Is it an issue around the systems, things that you need to change? Is it an issue around the people? Because sometimes if you see that this person cannot be changed, you find a way to change them, or else they have to be out of the institution. So in change management, I'm really summarizing a lot of things. It is important to look at where we are as an institution. First of all, you do a lot of analysis around where you are as an institution. Then you have to be clear about where you are going. Then what resources do you need to actually get to where you want to go? What kind of systems do you need? What kind of people do you need? And then you start now looking at the capacity that you have to build in your people. And you have to also prepare in advance to dealing with the resistance to change. Remember, if people are enjoying a certain way, where, for instance, you come for work, you do just very little, and now we want you to do more, there will be resistance. Yeah. If people were maybe stealing something, maybe it was fuel or whatever, it was money, they were enjoying a certain benefit, and then you want to make these changes, there will be resistance because there's a benefit they were getting by having a system that is not working very well. So when we come to change management at a strategic level and HR, you have to be very clear in terms of where you're going. Look at the hindrances or the obstacles and see how are we going to deal with these things. So that at the end of the day, you create this smooth change. Then you have to look again at the legal implications of your change. If, for instance, your change is going to bring change to the salaries and conditions of service and things like that, you have to see what is the provision of the contract and what does the law say about this. Again, you can do it internally, or you can bring a consultant on board to assist you.
Mr. Kabanda, you work with big corporations, I must make mention. What would you advise strategic HR in terms of utilization of HR analytics in metrics?
Yeah, so I think that one we will basically come and probably have a full conversation around it, especially not only analytics, but also technology itself. Because over time we have seen that the technology is changing, and you are finding, for instance, people working very fast. It is important that companies invest a lot in understanding technology and its impact on the business. But also when it comes to analytics, you are actually saying, what are the things that we're going to be following? we need to have specific targets, and we should be able to benchmark. Starting from on the financial side, it's very easy. This is our budget, this is our actual, this is what we have spent. So there's that simple understanding. But even from the HR side, you should be able to say what were our targets around recruitment, what were the targets around we talked about staff retention, training and development, and every other analytic that you have to look at, because it is from the information that you get from the analysis of the whole institution in terms of HR that you are then able to come up with better plans. Remember, as HR, we need to start being comfortable with the numbers and the trend analysis that has to be done, meaning that you're saying, what was the trend in last year or the other year versus this year? So there's a lot of analysis that actually happen at a strategic level, so that when you're informing or you're advising management, you're actually talking from an informed perspective rather than, like we have said, emotions.
It's been an amazing conversation, I must make mention, Mr. Kabanda. Yeah. And we're looking forward to having such kind of a conversation again next week. But before we let you go, your last remarks to the people watching.
Yes, it's really just to appreciate everyone who has been following us, as well as giving us the support, the contributions. For us, what is really key is that let us have institutions being run in a manner that allows the institution to thrive, the employees to thrive. Because when you have institutions running properly, then you find that people are happy to go for work. It's a big danger to have a company where people are complaining. And if people are not happy, they definitely will not give in their level best, because they are now seeing that probably our efforts are not appreciated. So it's important from the HR perspective that as you make these plans around your strategies, you're also looking, like you're asking, around your staff retention strategies and satisfaction issues. How are the people actually being managed? What are the managers doing? What is top management doing? What is the board? Last week we talked about the board. What is the direction that the board wants to take, and what support is it giving us, and how the employees responding to those kind of things? Because that is the work of a top level HR, to make sure that the institution is being steered in the right direction. The people are happy, management is happy, the board is happy, and all the stakeholders are happy. Where there are stakeholders who are not happy, you look into those issues and say, how do we make sure that we resolve whatever issues are there? In that way, you get things done. And at the end of the day, you don't have one group thinking that you should be checked out. So it could be management, it could be employees who can chant the slogans that you should go. So it is very important that you balance everything and make sure you get the best out of employees. Otherwise, it's, once again, is to appreciate the people who are following us. And feel free to make sure that you follow us on TikTok and LinkedIn. I think yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we were actually celebrating reaching a milestone of over 10,000 followers on TikTok. So we are very happy with everybody who has followed us.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
To our viewers, you've been watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, the finest television, and I hope you really enjoyed this particular conversation. For trainings and step-by-step guidance on any employment, management and leadership matters, simply get in touch with Mr. Owen Kabanda. He will help you in that regard. I have been your host, Patricia Chilamiko. Like he mentioned, please do follow KBN TV on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search for KBN TV and follow Mr. Owen Kabanda on all social media platforms. I have been your host once again, Patricia Chilamiko. It's goodbye.